Have you ever dated somebody and within the first 2 or 3 weeks, you're already picturing your entire life together? You're envisioning the names that you're going to have for your kids, like what your wedding, your blended family is going to look like. You're going through all of the planning in your head. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about why you're still falling for potential and getting hooked into possibility with people, even though you've already done a lot of work on yourself and you should know better. If you're new here, my name is Bethany Dotson. I am a somatic therapist and a trauma-informed relationship coach, and I support high-achieving women who have endured, survived, moved on, rebuilt from narcissistic abuse, but still repeat the same frustrating, painful patterns in their relationships. So if you found yourself here, it's likely that you're not dating because you're terrified of being alone or because you feel like you're desperate. You're dating because you truly want somebody special in your life that feels safe, that you can connect with. And you're still finding that in your experience of dating, you're falling for what this person could be and getting confused on the subtle red flags that may get bigger over time. And what I want to say here is that falling for potential and getting hooked or even addicted to the idea, the possibility of somebody is one of the most socially acceptable forms of self-abandonment. By the way, this doesn't just show up in your dating life. It's a primary place it's going to show up, but it could also show up in your career where you rationalize why it's better to stay where you're at than start your own business or find something better. Or you might rationalize why it's better to stick with a friend group that you have, even though you feel like you've outgrown them or like you're moving in a different direction. Why do we do it in our love lives? Because if you are a woman who has survived narcissistic abuse and you have a concurrent repeat pattern in your love life where you've always feel like you're getting a sip of water from the other person, but you're not getting the full glass of water, we get hooked into possibility because possibility feels intoxicating, especially if we've been carrying the weight of life on our own for a while. And if you were married to a person with narcissistic traits, you likely spent years carrying the weight of life on your own inside the walls of that marriage or relationship. So the idea of being surprised by life, sometimes I find women, and I've experienced this myself, where we meet somebody and we're not even really looking and it just kind of happens and we're like, we want to meet somebody, but we're not trying super hard to make it happen either. And then out of left field, in comes somebody who's really amazing. And it kind of takes us off our feet a little bit. And we start, oh my gosh, this feels so amazing. So the idea of being surprised by life, that rush of excitement that we feel is also really intoxicating and can cause us to get the switch gets flipped in our mind and in our body to like, ooh, I want to start believing in this person's potential. I want to start believing in where this could go. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think we all do that to a certain extent, especially early in dating. But if you have a pattern of unavailable people, inconsistent people, there's deeper issues at play here. The most root cause reason why this is happening traces back to your childhood. I personally grew up with a father who was bipolar or manic depressive. I didn't know a different father. I just knew as soon as I could remember growing up that my dad had a mental illness. Those were the words that I heard from my mom, my grandparents. And whenever my dad was in a manic phase, he was very volatile. He would leave the house and not come home for days at a time, spend a lot of money, get us into a lot of financial trouble. And he was also extremely violent. He had a very violent temper. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was the epitome of my father growing up. And so instead of leaving the marriage, my mom leaving him, We were told we need to behave, we need to be more understanding, we need to be patient, that he's a really good person, he just has a mental illness and we need to work with him on this. And my dad, when he wasn't manic or in a depressive state, was actually incredibly amazing. The best person, the life of the party. And so, as you can probably imagine, my 5-year-old brain getting these signals took that in as programming, right? So your story might not be the same as that, but maybe you grew up around a parent who was emotionally not available, but they were physically there, and you learned that you had to perform or get straight A's to win their attention. Or maybe your thing was, I got to get in trouble at school to win their attention. Like, there was something that you had to do in order to get love from that person. So that's one of the ways that can start to create this subconscious programming that you keep repeating. Even though logically you want somebody healthy, you keep finding that you're doing this thing where you keep buying into potential. And when we grow up in an environment where we have to perform in order to be good, or we have to be the good girl in order to have approval in our family dynamic, that sets us up for a very powerful pattern of also becoming a high achiever in life. Maybe your path to being a high achiever was being in athletics in school or college, or getting a scholarship in college, or double majoring in college, or working really hard and climbing the corporate ladder and having a wonderful career, or always becoming the doctor or the lawyer that your family wanted, because you think that once you get there, life is going to be amazing and you're going to suddenly feel great about yourself and you're going to have all the love and the approval that you've always wanted. You're not necessarily consciously thinking that, but this can be a very powerful underlying motivator. And what happens with high achievers, while being high achieving and driven and hardworking and putting in a lot of effort is great for your career, it is also often a disaster for your love life, because we learn that if I just work hard enough, eventually I'll get the amount of money in my bank account that I want. If I just work hard enough, eventually I'll get the corner office. If I put in the time, put in the effort, master my skill, eventually I'll get X, Y, and Z. And when we start applying that in our love lives and we don't get what we want in return, it leaves us feeling extremely drained, in emotional distress. It leaves lasting scars. And healing for a lot of women who've fled narcissistic relationships, healing often looks like learning about the narcissist, learning about your childhood and your patterns and how your patterns led you to the narcissist, and learning about your attachment style and learning what to put in your online dating profile, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't, that's not healing. It's part of healing, but it's not the full picture. Healing 360, coming full circle, is being aware of where you still self-abandon in your life on a small daily basis. And I can almost guarantee that if you're watching this right now and you have a pattern in your love life that you can't get over, I am 100% positive that you are still self-abandoning in other parts of your life. And so when we finally meet somebody that, after so long of not meeting that person and staying with the wrong people for too long, it's not necessarily about this person anymore. It's about what finally being loved means about us. One of the other primary reasons that we continue to buy into possibility with people is because buying into a fantasy can act as an emotional pain medication against the real uncertainty that happens, especially in early stage dating. And if you've survived narcissistic abuse, you leave that relationship with what's called a shortened or a narrow window of tolerance to joy, to stress. A lot of women who leave these types of relationships feel like they're living a very small life. Even though things look like they're going great in her life, she feels kind of trapped in her own life. She's usually a workaholic. And this is all because on a nervous system level, you are essentially still living in fight or flight, and you're trying to protect you. Your life becomes, you're living from a state of hypervigilance. You try to ward off or thwart off anything that could potentially cause you more pain like your ex did. And so when you have a narrow window of tolerance and you start dating again, early stage dating brings up a lot of uncertainty. And this is one of the things that you probably became really good at mastering, which is avoiding uncertainty with your ex. You ignored a lot of red flags. You silenced your needs. You shrank who you were. You cut off your essence. You became a chameleon, whatever you want. You became a people pleaser. You, without even recognizing, you probably morphed into somebody that you don't even know anymore. So when we get into early stage dating, it's so easy to feel really uncomfortable with what are we? Are we exclusive yet? Where is this going? Is this going anywhere? And one of the ways that we mitigate that uncomfortable feeling, just like a smoker picks up a cigarette whenever they're stressed, they're not really dealing with a core issue. They're just taking off some of the steam. Do you know what I'm saying? This is what buying into a fantasy does in early stage dating. It helps you mitigate the potential for rejection, the potential for more abandonment, the pain of disappointment, upset, all of these things. And so it kind of takes your eyes off of reality and your own self and your feelings, and it puts you in a better feel-good place. Buying into potential or fantasy keeps you emotionally occupied while basically your life stays the same. Nothing really changes in your life. Real healing doesn't mean harder work on yourself. Real healing, especially when you've already gained a lot of awareness and you've checked the boxes on learning all the information, means learning how to stay present with increasing amounts of uncertainty and uncomfortable feelings. It's about learning how to allow those feelings to come up, not interrupt them with work, not interrupt them with scrolling on your phone. It means allowing yourself to feel the pangs of, oh, I don't know if this person is aligned for me, and then making different choices in the moment, even though that might mean confronting, that might mean conflict, that might mean you have to walk away, that might mean, the other person rejects you or abandons you in some way. And those feelings are what we often avoid and want to avoid, especially after we leave a narcissistic relationship. But those uncomfortable feelings are part of the trajectory of our growth and part of the process of co-creating a healthy relationship with somebody. You have to learn how to do that. This isn't about finding the right man, although finding a great partner that breaks the mold of what you've been attracted to before is a great thing. This is about becoming unavailable for the version of you that still ignores reality. If this resonated for you, if you feel like you've done a lot of work on yourself and you logically understand your patterns, however, you still keep repeating them despite your best efforts, this is exactly who I created Break the Cycle for. I'll leave some information below. I have a free training and bethanydotson.com/training. And if you would like to have a conversation about the possibility of working together, no pun intended, you can go to bethanydotson.com/talk, and we'll have an honest conversation about your unique patterns, what you want, and whether or not working together could help you get there. I'll see you on the next episode.